Caleb Williams, quarterback, Southern California.
What's up, Bears fans? Welcome back. Another Friday segment of the Willis Twin Towers, and it's rookie mini camp, guys. First day started today. We got a few pressers we can give you some clips on. We got some an interesting article in the last week that I want to get to you guys about. We got a couple interesting interview segments that we didn't get a chance to talk about last week. So a lot of good stuff today to go through, to digest. And UDFAs, it's another thing I didn't mention just now, but a lot of stuff to talk about, and it's going to be a pretty interesting show today. So we're glad you guys are here. Right before we get started, I want to mention a couple things. As usual, please give us all a follow and give us a like on the video. Tim's Twitter handles at TimWillis24. You can follow the Barroom Network at Barroom Network. And I'm actually in the process. I'm going to be changing my Twitter handle. So I have a vote for you guys that we're going to put on the show here today. And throughout the show, if you guys want to go ahead and make different selections on this, and at the end, I'll go ahead and decide on one. The idea behind this is it's getting hard for people to find me on Twitter. Even the people who follow me are having difficulty tagging me and things. So I'm going to go ahead and make that change and make it easier for you guys to find me. And like I said, there's 3 different names that I've got that we're going to put in this vote for you guys to have here. So Aldo, if you have that ready, let's go ahead and put it on the screen before I send it over to Tim, just to give these guys a leg up on the votes here, if we can do that. We might not have that ready yet. So whenever he gets that going, I'll get it up for you guys. But in the meantime, go ahead and introduce yourself, Tim. And as we get it going into the show here, like I said, we got a lot to dig into. And Tim will get us started on whatever he wants to get started on here.
Well, first I was going to say, if you guys don't see it now, or I'm sure you have now, but man, Aldo outdid himself once again. That new intro it's awesome. What a great intro there. Starting it off, new fresh slate for a quarterback. It works out well. It looks good. I can't thank you enough, Aldo. And I'm sure you guys liked it as well. It's a new era. So it's a new start here too. And, going into this season, I'm trying not to hype myself up too much. But it's kind of hard because it's been such a great off season. I'm super excited to see where this goes. Trying to keep expectations realistic for myself is going to be the hardest thing going into this. But let's go ahead and get started, Jeff. We've been talking about, the draft class and these new players coming in and now we've got 9 UDFAs also coming in along with the 5 draft picks. We discussed 4 of them last week. We did not get to Caleb Williams, but that was the one that everybody knew that was the move. There's not much else to really discuss on that right now outside of the fact that most of us have heard the story behind Caleb and what he's done at USC and Oklahoma. And most of us knew what the tape showed and the hype that was coming in with him. Most people talking about him in the same breath as Andrew Luck when he came out. If we could have a situation like that, that would be like best case scenario, being a playoff team right off the bat. But let's go ahead and get started, Jeff. Let's talk about Caleb. And the Bears had press conferences today. We heard from Matt Eberflus as well as Caleb Williams and Odunze today. I was talking to Jeff on the phone earlier. We had a conversation, and the first thing I told him about the press conference is that as much as I love Justin Fields and I was a big fan of his here, and I really wanted him to be the guy that led us to the playoffs and do a Super Bowl and all of those things. The one thing that everybody seemed, I don't want to say they had a problem with it, but the one knock most people had on his personal character was that he was not a good interviewer. He was not good in his press conferences. He was just always kind of dull, and he was all business. There was not a whole lot of personality outside of that when it came to the media. We heard him on a few podcasts on his own, and you could see the personality and you could hear it. But when it came to press conferences and talking to the media, there just wasn't that same moxie, if you will. Caleb Williams has that moxie, like big time. He's got to work on his dub airs, but overall, I mean, you can just see the fire in him, the passion he has for the game, the passion to be the best, to be a champion. He wants to win, and that's a big deal. Justin wanted to win too, but there's just something about this kid that personality. I just have a feeling that this kid is going to be something special. That is my hope, and that is the feeling that I get from him. As long as everything works out, and there's a lot of what ifs. That's going to happen. It's that none of these are a sure thing. But the talent is there, and the personality is there, and the moxie and the drive. So I want to give you guys something here real quick. He was talking about his leadership skills. He was asked in his press conference about being a leader and what traits it takes to be a leader. And Aldo actually has a clip of this press conference and that part of the press conference when he was talking about being a leader. So Aldo, if you can we play that clip really quick and then we'll discuss it after?
To be a great leader, you got to learn how to follow first. So right now I'm following all the vets. I'm following all the coaches. I'm listening, having both ears open and my mouth shut. Just kind of sitting back, listening. And then, when I get to the point when I learn everything, when I learn the ways of how we do it, the culture, the playbook, and what the offensive line, wide receivers, are all doing, running backs and tight ends and things like that. Then you can start taking the lead. Then you can start taking the helms of all of it, and take the next steps. For right now, though, I'm listening more than I'm speaking and talking, and I'm taking it one step at a time, being the moment. Awesome. Yeah, Bears.
Jeff, real quick before you go, there's something I want to mention on this really quickly. Another thing Jeff and I were talking about earlier is I was actually kind of upset because, during this process before the draft, we heard a lot of things about his personal character and how much does he really love football and the Hollywood thing and all these different things that we heard. And, a lot of people were really scared of that. And I was upset because, there are several times Jeff and I mentioned that on the podcast. Like, we never once said that we felt that this is for sure how he is, but these were the things that we were hearing and we were mentioning those things on here. And I have to tell you, none of that stuff has even remotely been true. Like, he's none of those things. And it's refreshing, but also kind of irritating at the same time because, I put that out there and Jeff put that out there and we didn't know the situation or know how he was, but we were just going based on things we heard from credible sources. So to get that out of the way first, listening to what he just said about being a follower in order to be a leader and how he wants to come in there and be a part of that culture and learn the culture before he starts being a leader. That, does that sound like Hollywood to you? Is there any part of that sounds like he has that Hollywood personality about me, this is my show, this is my thing? I don't gain any of that from that. So I love it. I love that he's going to come in here and he understands, like, I'm not the veteran. I'm not the superstar player yet. Like, I got to come in here. I got to be a rookie. I got to earn my way with these guys. I got to earn their respect. So that was a terrific answer in my opinion. I like that he wants to be a follower before he can be a leader. And that's, to me, that's how you do it. And, in this league and with this team, that if the veterans weren't sure about him before, I think that was a good way to get them to be on your side and gain their respect and trust.
Okay, so long story short and all that, I'm with you with what you said, Tim, as far as there was some stuff that was put out there about Caleb and it was more so speculation than anything. And you mentioned that we put it out there. I don't know that I like the way you worded that because I wouldn't even say we put it out there. All we did was we had mentioned to our following base that, there's some word out there from some reputable sources that there were some concerns, as far as, I don't know if it was personality or character or football character or what have you, but it was some other stuff that was not on the field related. And obviously the Bears have not had an issue with any of this. And I'm going to dig into something a little bit later with you guys on that, because like I said earlier in the show, there was an article, Albert Breer wrote the article, as a matter of fact, for Sports Illustrated. It's an excellent article, and it kind of dug into the Bears process from the start of last season, actually, all the way through up to the point where they decided to draft Caleb. And really, it goes very far back. They had a very articulate plan. It talks about how Poles went to make sure he saw all the quarterbacks before he made this decision at the early part of the season. He wanted to make sure he went to see each of them live, the top 5 quarterbacks in the draft. Caleb was one of those. He went to the Notre Dame game USC played. And one of the things the article mentions is that it wasn't so much a concern the way he played in that game, because obviously quarterbacks are going to have their ups and downs. But one thing that Poles immediately noticed before the game even started was he mentions that he went to go see Joe Montana, who, those of you who aren't familiar, Joe Montana won a national championship at Notre Dame. He's a grad of there, obviously. So he went before the game to go see Joe Montana and shake his hand, more so as a fan than anything else, and just like as a guy he looked up to. And Poles really took note of that, and it was something that stuck with him. And not only just that, but he mentions also that something about his pregame workout routine, and it kind of mentioned him a little bit of like Steph Curry and the way he does his routine before the game. And so there was a lot to like about him, seeing him up close and personal. He mentions body language and how important the body language is with quarterbacks, how his teammates would respond to him and encourage him after bad plays. Those were all things that he really liked to see. And as Tim was just talking about, there was that stuff had been mentioned with speculation about his character and things of that nature. What kind of teammate is he? And of course you have to ask those questions, but this team has obviously been doing their research on it for a very long time now. And they got to the point where they were very comfortable with him. And they really got comfortable with him, as the article will tell you, as we got a lot closer to the draft. But still, the thing is there was from the tape alone, there was always kind of like a soft spot in Poles' heart for Caleb. And he mentions that in the article as well. Like I said, guys, you really need to look at this. This thing goes really in depth. It's an excellent article, and there's no paywall behind it as far as I know. So you should really go check it out and look at it, because there's a ton of detail in it. And it even talks about some other things, which we have another clip for you, which I'm going to get to in a second here. Also, Caleb's quarterback coach I believe his name is Matt Hewlett, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about his first name, but he is a guy.
Hewlett.
Thank you. He was working with Matt Eberflus before the draft to help Caleb kind of get acclimated with the Bears and their playbook and how they do things, because they had an idea this is what they were going to do. So this quarterback coach is mentioned in this Albert Breer article, and how he's having a discussion with Matt Eberflus, and he talks to Eberflus about touch on the throws that Caleb makes throughout the field. And I'm kind of getting on a tangent here, but I wanted to have you guys understand this because it was pretty cool. So he talks about how most quarterbacks, their range on their throws is about 4 mile an hour difference from their highest velocity throw to their lowest velocity throw. On average, it ranges about 4 miles an hour. And he was mentioning that on Caleb's throws, he has a whopping like 10 mile an hour difference in the variance of his throws, which is like staggering compared to most guys. And you can see it on a tape clearly if you watch this guy play enough. He's throwing balls with touch and precision all over the place, and it's just dropping them into the bucket. So it makes a ton of sense hearing that said. And I said it like 3 times already. Go check out the article, guys, because it's magnificent. So it talks about these things. It talks about the leadership. And there is a clip here that I want to play, if we can get to it here, Aldo, about the quarterback coach, and how this is from Matt Eberflus's press conference today, and how they had been working together and helped out Caleb before the draft.
Yeah, Will Hewitt's been awesome in this whole process, us being able to have great conversations with him. And he gets it. He's trained a lot of guys, and he's elite at what he does. And so it was a pleasure to work with him. So He was working on our stuff, a little bit, cadence and those types of things and the footwork that we want. And that's been a good process for us.
How much of the playbook do you give somebody that's outside of your coaching staff? Like, what's like the depth of what they're going through versus what he's going to have to go through?
Yeah, it's more just fundamentals, route tree stuff, just basics.
So before I send it over to you, Tim, I want to mention one thing real quick that stuck out to me when he was talking about Will Hewlett, the quarterback coach, and that he used the word specifically elite. Okay. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with head coaches in the NFL or really in just about any professional sporting atmosphere. They typically don't talk about independent coaches like that in regards like that. They kind of just allow these guys, the players, to work with the guys that they want to. I don't know if you're familiar with Bill Belichick, not being a super huge fan of Tom Brady's trainer for the longest time, but that's just kind of how it is. They're not always really highly accepted. For Matt Eberflus to say he is elite at what he does, that kind of tells you something about how he feels about the guy and how, he feels about the work he does with Caleb. So I thought that was interesting. You have any thoughts on that in particular, Tim?
Well, it kind of goes into another part of that press conference. Eberflus was talking about Caleb, and someone had basically asked him about Caleb and I can't remember exactly the question, but he mentioned the word, I don't know if it was elite or he was talking about Caleb being like those elite quarterbacks. And they said, or it was like expectations, like we expect him to be able to do this, this, and this, because that's what the elite quarterbacks do. Basically putting him in that company already, or believing that he should be in that company.
Well, I mean, to be fair, when you take a guy number 1 overall, that is the expectation. You expect him to become an elite player at his position, especially if it's a quarterback. That's why you take him number 1. So to be fair, the expectation is for him to grow into that. Now, I want to real quick, Aldo mentions a point here. He wonders if Matt Eberflus is going to be fined for giving out a portion of the playbook before Caleb was officially a Bear. Now, that's an interesting point, because there was something that Eberflus said in the press conference today about, because a reporter had asked him a question. It wasn't exactly that, but it was something about, what are you teaching him? What are you giving him from the playbook? And he said something along the lines of, it's not so much that, but we're teaching him more some of the route tree stuff and some of we just want him to make sure he's got the cadence right and he's got the footwork and stuff like that right that we want him to use. So it was generic things like Cliff says, it's generic stuff. Just the way they want him to handle it. It was like stuff with Justin Fields when they first came in. They want him to change his footwork and all that. So I'm not sure if it was so much playbook stuff. Now, I'm sure there was some of that going on behind closed doors, but they're not going to admit to that, obviously. So I will be interested to see, Aldo, if they do, in fact, give them any kind of fine or anything like that, because that'll tell you something there. So that is an interesting thought. Before I move on to something else, I mentioned at the top of the show, Aldo had a graphic for us that I wanted to do a vote on my Twitter handle, guys, to make it a little easier to find me. And I want to mention it again now before I forget. He's got it here on the screen, guys. So these are the 3 options. I have a very popular name. It's kind of hard to I can't just have @Jeff Willis, unfortunately. So these are your options, guys. @_Jeff Willis is the first option. @Jeff Willis FB, like football. And @Jaw_football, and Jaw is obviously my initials. So it looks like _Jeff Willis has the lead right now, and I kind of figured that would be the case, and it wouldn't be too hard to find me that way. So I have a feeling that that's going to end up being the winner. But keep bringing your votes in, guys, and we'll announce the winner at the end of the show here. Like I said, the whole idea is to make it easier for you guys to find me. So Victor says he doesn't want me to use the one that ends in FB because it gives a Facebook vibe off. The idea was for football and not Facebook. So if that's the case, and like I said, this is for you guys more so than me, I will definitely consider that thought. So, and it's in last place anyway, so it doesn't look like that one's gonna win. But anyhow, moving along to our to kind of what we were getting into here with Caleb. Leadership skills we talked about. There's another clip in Flus's press conference where he talks about Caleb's aura. A reporter asked him, what do you see in Caleb's aura? And the reason I want to mention this clip too is because I saw something. There was a clip that I believe as the Bears released, a video of him walking onto the field. And I was telling Tim this on the phone earlier. I just feel like he kind of has this swag to him, this different kind of, it's like a looseness, kind of like he's just ready to rock and roll when he walks on the field. And there's no fear, there's no nervousness, there's no uneasiness. And as I feel like Justin Fields had a lot of confidence, but at the same time, there were moments where you would see him going into like late game, fourth quarter situations, 2-minute situations, or otherwise, where you kind of just saw in his face and in his eyes that he really didn't have that confidence in himself at that moment, or maybe not to the extent you would like to see. It just didn't seem that way in those moments sometimes. And, you know, if you guys remember, there was that one game where he was actually doing the breathing technique where he like had to sit back and start breathing a little bit to like calm himself down a little bit. Those things were a little bit concerning, you know, and I don't see that at all with Caleb. He just, like I said, he has this different level of swagger. Brouhaha says like a Jack Sparrow confidence. That's pretty, I like that. It kind of is like that. It's like, I'm my own guy. I'm going to do things how I want to do it. I'm not afraid to be in my own skin. I'm going to paint my nails. I'm going to cry with my mom at the end of big games. That's who I am, you know, and people can criticize it. As you guys know, on our show at one point in time, I'd mentioned that game after his last game when he went up in the stands and he was crying with his mom. I didn't exactly criticize it, but what I did say is I don't know that I would necessarily have handled it that way. I think you go into the locker room and you handle that moment with your teammates, and crying does happen in locker rooms. I understand that, you know, and even with your mom after a game, you know, whatever, maybe in a private moment, but that's not him. You know, his mom is obviously a very important part to him and his growth in his life. So him going up in the stands and doing that was how he is. And you know what? It's gotten him to where he is right now. So we can't criticize this stuff. This guy is comfortable with the man he is, and it shows. He walks on the field showing it. You know, he's got the bear claw going. He's saying bear down. He says the Bears at the end of his press conferences. He's there. He wants this. He wants to win, and you can see it. It feels good having a guy with that kind of, he relishes the environment is what it is. It feels like to me is a good way to put it. So look, I mean, we all talked about how Justin handled the media well. He really did. But look, he handled it in a totally different way than Caleb has begun handling it at the start of his career here. And neither one of them so far, to me, has handled it wrong. I mean, I love the way Caleb has handled it so far. Like I said, he's relished the environment. And, you know, like I said, guys, this has been an exciting time. It's exciting to see what they do and what they do on the field. And so, like I mentioned to you just a minute ago, that aura, I was getting a little off again, but let's go ahead and get that clip on the screen because Eberflus, he mentioned that aura and what he sees from Caleb.
It's really, you know, I've said it before that you can really tell that he's comfortable with himself in his own skin, and he is who he is. And his personality starts, you know, in his light comes out from the inside. You can certainly feel that energy. He's a 1 + 1 = 3 guy, you know, so he's an enhancer. He's a guy that brings out the best in people, and you can certainly feel that within 5 minutes of meeting him.
Matt, how does it feel to you to start fresh with a new quarterback? To have a guy that you're starting on the ground level with instead of, you know, in the past you inherited Justin, you had to go through some things from the year before. To start fresh with a new quarterback.
It's really a great opportunity, right? It's refreshing to be able to do that. I know the whole building's excited about working together, not only with Caleb but with everybody. And it's certainly nice to have that fresh start.
Has he been told that he's the starter going into training camp? Do you even have to have that conversation?
No conversation. He's the starter.
Yeah, I mean, they're leaving no doubt. I mean, with the fact, I mean, we all knew he was going to be the starter anyway. I mean, it wasn't a secret, but you know, a lot of times you'll hear them say, well, yeah, well, there will be a competition at least. We'll get, you know, we don't, and they say all the time, we don't put ceilings on players. So, but I mean, it's unequivocal. He is the starter. And like he said, just when he's walking around, like he just makes everybody better, or he makes everybody feel better too. I mean, he's that personality. It's electric from what it sounds like from everybody that we hear from. He has that swagger like you're talking about, and it makes other guys, you know, have confidence in him as well. And, you know, we heard some stuff like that from his USC teammates too. So, you know, this is the thing that kind of got me a little bit was when I believe it was Jason Leisure that asked him how he felt about the fresh start. And I was kind of a little bit surprised by the way he responded to it. I kind of figured he would say something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm not concerned with that kind of thing. We're here to help this football team, and Ryan's made moves to improve our roster and blah 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 blah." But he was straight up and just said, "I'm all about the fresh start. I like the idea of having a fresh start. Start over and see where take this thing to the next level and yada yada yada." So that kind of surprised me a little bit. I don't know how you feel about that, Jeff, but it didn't come off as a Flus answer. And as we've seen, like in this offseason and like at the end of last season, there's a different confidence about Matt Eberflus too. And because of that, he's answering questions a little more heartily, and he's more willing to give you more of an answer and not just the coach speak. So I don't know, I'm sure some of it has to do with the new look and, how his wife's got him looking debonair and whatnot. So, I like that he's got that confidence, and I hope that he's able to take it and grow on the last 2 years, because it's been rough. The defense played really well, but there's been some questions about his decisions as a head coach. So hopefully this is a growing moment. I don't want to harp too much on him because, the team wasn't anywhere near ready to do anything year one. And even last year, there were still a lot of holes and still a lot of things that were left to be desirable. So, I don't know how you feel about it, Jeff, but hopefully this is another step in the right direction with Flus. Although I kind of thought his hair looked a little weird today. And I see Aldo's responding that I don't think the new hairdo looks like Beavis or Butthead. Hey, shut up, Butthead.
God. So anyways, first of all, you sounded like Butthead and you said shut up, Butthead. So
I did. I should have said Beavis.
Yeah. But anyways, so just to kind of like tackle that real quick, there was an interest. That was kind of interesting to me when he'd mentioned the fresh start, and they were talking about that a little bit, because there has been some talk on Twitter about that as well from other people. And I think there's some thought that when he talks about the fresh start, that it's like, I'm glad to be moving on from what we had before and starting with what we have now and starting afresh. And there is some truth to that, I'm sure. But I think there's also a part of it that's like, it's nice to have a new rookie come in that I can work with, that hasn't developed habits from another coaching staff, that didn't do things the way I like doing them. And this is a guy that I can come in and develop a relationship with right away. He doesn't start with another coach right away. He's got me. He learns my ways, our systems, how we do things. And I feel like that's going to be the best route to expediting his growth. So I feel like there's kind of a piece to both of that. I think maybe that's a little bit of like, yeah, there were some difficulties with Justin that I'm glad we're moving on from. But I also think there's a part of it that's like, yeah, I'm glad to have a guy that I get to do myself with. I don't have to worry about how he was coached by somebody else before. So there's a little bit of truth to both, I think. So, yeah, that's just, I don't know. That's a little interesting to me. I had a difficult time thinking it was all just like a shot at Justin there. But I do think there was a little bit of truth to both of those things. Yeah. So Aldo mentions real quick, another reminder here, guys, if you have not cast a vote in a poll, please do. Again, if we can get the graphic on the screen, we'll show you. It's the Twitter handle debate here. I'm going to change it to make it easier on you guys. We're voting on what we're going to go with here. And the first choice is @_ Jeff Willis. The second choice is @Jeff Willis FB, and the FB would stand for football. So @Jeff Willis FB. And the third choice is @Jaw_football. Jaw is obviously my initials. And right now @_ Jeff Willis is in the lead, and that's probably what's going to end up winning at this rate. And it makes a lot of sense because it'll be pretty easy to find me that way. So anyway, Tim says @Jeff_is_in_idiot. That's a lot of underscoring, but I am an idiot. I will agree with that for the most part. So anyways, moving on. So there's another couple interesting tidbits in some pressers that I wanted to get to today. Roman and Caleb both had press conferences, and they were talking about learning together. Rome's talking about the quality of the receivers room. let's go ahead and get into those clips so you guys can see them, and we'll talk a little bit about them afterwards.
I mean, it's hard to, imagine a better situation, honestly. Just coming in with a rookie quarterback, it allows us to grow together and allows us to, learn this offense together as well. So, when he's studying, I'm there right next to him studying and getting his mindset on different routes and different concepts and, learning his sort of perspective on the whole offense, which is a great way for me to learn because I like to learn, the big concept and then, okay, let me detail it up and understand what I need to do within any specific scheme or concept. So to be alongside him, it's a blessing.
You obviously see why he had, I think, 1,500 plus and a bunch of catches. And so, he's explosive for his size, explosive, route runner, things like that. He's also really smooth in and out of routes and transitions. So, working with him, it's been great. It's been awesome. I'm excited for what's next.
I want to make a comment here. John actually makes a really good point. He says, Rome is TO 2.0. Get your popcorn ready. We've heard a lot of comps for Rome. I think that might actually be the most accurate comp I've heard yet. Because the thing with it is everybody keeps saying, like, he's Devontae but bigger. He's Larry Fitzgerald but faster. Who is Devontae Adams but bigger and Larry Fitzgerald but faster? It's TO. Like, that's actually a really good comp. And I think, if he ends up being Terrell Owens, then holy cow, yeah, get your popcorn ready. But, I heard some good things in that too, between the two of those guys. And, Rome made a really great point that, it's a great situation for him, number one, because he's walking in with a rookie quarterback. And I'm telling you that those two are going to have a chemistry that is like sound. They already have a great relationship. I just feel like this is going to be one of the best 1-2 pairs, quarterback, wide receiver in football. And I'm super excited. Guys, I have not hidden the fact that I thought Rome Odunze was my favorite. Rome Odunze was my favorite draft prospect this year. Definitely my favorite of the wide receivers. And there was a lot of conversation. People thought I was crazy to say that he's better than Marvin Harrison. And I don't know that he's not. I'm not saying that he is, but there's a lot of things that he does so many things well. And there's some things that Marvin just doesn't do well. Or maybe not that it's not that he doesn't do them well, but he doesn't do them at the level that Rome can do them. And I just think that the ceiling, this kid could be anything. Like, he could be so unbelievably good at every facet. He's not just a possession guy. He's not just an go up and get the ball guy. He's not just a speedster. He's not just a great route runner. He has all of these things gelled together, and he's very, very good at all of them. There's not a weakness in his game. And because of that, I think he's the one that is going to have the best career of all the wide receivers. I just feel that way. Marvin, I think he's going to have a great career. And, I'm a firm believer in, that NFL father-son relationship, how, a lot of those guys do really, really well. Most of them actually, if they have a father who played in the NFL, a lot of times those guys have really great careers as well. And we're starting to see that. There's several of them in the NFL right now, and a couple more this year that are coming in that came out of the draft. So, I just feel like this kid could be something very special. And the way that he's able to walk in here with his quarterback, they both are learning things together, which it means they're going to spend more time together, which means they're going to build more of a chemistry together because it's not veteran, rookie, rookie, veteran, whatever. These guys are both rookies. They're both learning together. And that is something that I think hasn't necessarily been discussed enough. And it could make a massive, massive difference in the development of both of those guys. It's great to have Keenan. It's great to have DJ. They're both going to help Caleb immensely. But I think that relationship with Rome is going to be one of the things that really takes this thing off the top. And it's really going to be a huge thing. And This kid's personality, like I've been saying it from day one, there's just something about him similar to Caleb. He just has, and I don't even want to say it's a moxie or a swagger like Caleb. You just have this confidence in the kid. I fell in love with the personality and the man listening to him from the beginning at his combine interviews. There's something about him that gives me this confidence in what he can be and what he's going to be. So I don't know how you feel about it, Jeff, but I'm sure it's gotten redundant. You guys have heard me say it multiple times and heard me just go on rants and tangents about Rome, but how do you not like him? I just don't know how anybody couldn't.
Well, there's a couple interesting comments in here. So John obviously made the comment about Rome being like T.O. Now, that is an interesting comp. T.O. was a different kind of athlete, dude. So I'm not sure if that's a totally fair comp for Rome at this point, especially considering the fact that T.O. is a Hall of Fame level receiver. But in any case, it's an interesting comp for sure. And he just has a different kind of body type and speech structure that most receivers don't have. It's one or the other for most guys. They usually don't have the combination of all of them. And like I told you guys on last week's show, this guy wins on every route. Every single route in the tree, he can win on it. So it's a true weapon. And like Tim said, the more you hear this guy talk, the more you listen to him, he's just one of those guys you can just see he wants to get down to business, get to work. He's very humble. And I feel like he reminds me a lot of DJ Moore in the way he talks too. So, which is an interesting point that I'm going to get to in a second. So, another comp that you guys mentioned here is, as J-Rock mentions, DJ Moore. And I'm going to get to that in just a second here. Victor mentions Mike Evans as a comp for Rome he sees. And that's an interesting one to me, especially at the catch point.
Faster.
He is faster, but at the catch point, absolutely. Yes. There's not very many guys in the league who go get the ball like Mike Evans does. And he just finds ways to get open too. So, I think that's an interesting comp in and of itself, but he is faster than Mike Evans. So I think he's going to be more of a deep ball target than Evans would be.
He does remind me of Evans, how often he wins at the catch point. That's something what I'm saying. I think has been very undervalued or underrated when they've talked about him, is how good he is at the catch point. Best in the class, bar none.
Now that brings me to the other point. So I believe it was J-Rock compared him to DJ Moore. Now, and I told you guys, he kind of reminds me that way with his personality a little bit too. Very down to earth, very much about his business. And it's kind of intriguing because Ryan Poles was on Waddle and Sylvie last week, if you guys didn't hear that interview. And that was also a very, very good interview that you have to go check out if you hadn't yet. And Poles actually makes the comparison for Rome. He's talking about him. And he says that he's a bigger, taller DJ, that he is at the catch point and ability to win over the top, but it's almost like with Keenan size. So he kind of has a blend of their games, is what he mentions in the interview. So it's interesting that he puts it that way, because now he's got those two guys on his team, and it's somebody for him to learn from, two guys for him to learn from. And what's interesting about that is, again, Rome was talking about that in his presser today about the competition in that wide receiver room as compared to what it was like when he was at Washington. And Aldo has a clip for us here, guys, if you want to check that out as well.
That's exactly what it is. It's a very competitive environment. I think for me, the mindset I think I want in a wide receiver room is everybody to think they're wide receiver one, and that's the mindset that I bring to a wide receiver room. And it's a friendly competition. At the end of the day, I want the best for the brother beside me, and I'm going to, run every route and do every concept, to perfection, even if, I'm the main read or if they're the main read, because I think that's what it's about when concerning a brotherhood within the room. So definitely, I think, that competitiveness, I mean, they've been doing it for a long time, so I got a ways to catch up here. But, I'm going to provide, a different skill set and a different versatility aspect to the offense that I hope, complements their play.
I'm going to say really quickly, for those of you who have heard the TJ Hushmanzada interview on Perkins and Spiegel, and he's done several of them, but he talks about Rome, and if you guys didn't know, he didn't even start working with Rome until after the college season was over. So he hadn't really had a lot of time with him. So you could make the argument that Rome really isn't his guy, but he's a guy that he started working with at the end here, or shortly before the draft. It's very rare to hear a former NFL wide receiver that was good as TJ Hushmanzada was. He was good. Like, I don't want to take anything from him. He's a good player. For him to speak on Rome like he has, it just gives you I've already talked about how we get that confidence feeling from Rome when he talks. But to hear the things that TJ Hushmanzada said about him being a former player and being a very good player,
being around some damn good receivers too.
A lot of them. Yes, a lot of them. So played with Ocho Cinco. Like he's been around a lot of really good ones.
Pretty sure AJ Green he played with, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Maybe at the end there, yeah, I would think so. Yeah. But he just, the way that he talks about him and the way we hear other people talk about him, there's just something about the kid. Like, I don't know what it is, and I can't explain why I feel the way I do about what he's going to do or what he could be and what I think he will be. It's just crazy that he has people like TJ talk about him like they are. And he's made all these comparisons to players, and he will not, if you guys didn't know, he doesn't give a comp. TJ Hushmanzada has struggled to give a comp for Rome because he said there is no one else like him. He is just different. He's a different animal. And so for him to say that about a guy he's only worked with for, a couple of months, if that speaks volumes to me, because he could easily be, he works with all kinds of different guys, a lot of players coming out, and he doesn't talk about those guys in the same breath that he talks about Rome with. Guys, there's and I've been saying this too, there's just something different about his game that other guys don't have. And it's hard to make a comp when he has the size, he has the speed, he has the route running, he has the yak, he has the full route tree. There's not a weakness in his game. And when there's not a weakness in your game, who's going to cover you? Because a bigger corner, they can't cover him because they're not going to be able to keep up. A smaller corner is not going to be able to cover him because they can't jump high enough, or they can't cover enough ground around him because he's so good at the catch point. Who's going to cover him? So if this staff with the new wide receiver coach and Chris Beatty, who has had a ton of success developing wide receivers, if they can bring out in this kid what the potential is, watch out, because he is going to be a perennial all-pro, potentially future Hall of Famer.
Well, I mean, we got to pump the brakes, but I mean,
I said potentially.
He is definitely coming into a good situation with the guys that he's got around him. Okay. There's been a lot of talk about like what we expect. There was a question in the chat. Do we think there's going to be 3,000 yard receivers on this team? And I don't think that's going to be the case. For one, I think they're going to run the ball a lot, because I don't think you want to put a rookie quarterback in a situation where you're forcing him to throw all the time. So especially consider you still have to run the ball to win games. You just do. So I think they will make a commitment to running the football to the point where they're not going to have, I just don't see a case where they have 3,000 yard receivers. Now I expect DJ to have 1,000 yards. I expect, I think even Cole Kmet will push for 1,000 yards. I don't know that he quite gets there. Keenan Allen, I'm not sure about him. He's the question mark for me. I think he's going to be a true safety blanket, be big on third downs, going to be big in the red zone. Well, maybe not so much the red zone, but probably a little bit so. But he's going to be big in situations where Caleb needs somewhere to go. He's not sure what to do. He's going to find Keenan Allen in those spots. I can tell you that much, because he just has a knack for getting open. So I feel like that's going to be a situation where that's where a lot of the attention is going to go early on. And I do think Rome is going to get he's going to get plenty of work. I don't see him making an enormous impact right away. I think as the season goes along, he's just going to get better and better and better. I don't think he's going to be 1,000 yard receiver. The only other thing I would say is that I like I said, I don't anticipate him being a 1,000-yard receiver right now, but as his career moves on, year 2, year 3, you don't draft a guy 9th overall unless you expect him to be that kind of guy. That's why you have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen around him to work with him and make him better right now. I don't think all the pressure is on him to be great right now. And also, he's probably going to get a lot of single coverage. So he's going to get his opportunities to beat, one-on-one coverage and see if he can really separate in a league, which is a really telling sign in the NFL. Can you separate? So it's going to give him his opportunities. And I'm not sure that he's going to come right out the gates and be, guns a-blazing. I do think he's going to be a very good player. I just don't think it'll happen right away necessarily. I think he'll have a good season still. I just don't think you're going to see, Jamar Chase's rookie year. Okay. I just don't see that. Okay. Especially with the weapons that they already have around him, the running game, stuff like that. So that being said, I do love the kid. I think he's going to have an excellent career. I think the pairing with him and Caleb is really, really good. I love how they've really kind of become accustomed with each other and grown. I don't know what the word is I'm really looking for, but they've really kind of taken this rookies with the Bears thing together and not so much like on their own. They're really wanting to do this thing with each other. So I think it's big. I think we're in good hands for a while with these two. And like I said, I think there's going to come a point in time where Rome is the man. He's going to be a very, very good football player. And I do think he's going to be just fine. I think he'll be able to separate just fine in the future. I don't see that being an issue for him. And he's just, like I said, there's so many good comps for him as far as him at the catch point. He wins on every route in the route tree, at least as far as the analytics are concerned. You watch his tape and he's doing it too. So, that's just my take on that whole thing. I love the guys they brought in. Aldo mentions we do. If you guys have any questions here, as we like to say to you guys in the show most of the time, we forgot to say it at the top of the hour. If you have any questions, throw them in now. We'll answer them at the end of the show here for you guys, the best of our ability. We try to do that every show, make you guys a part of it. So if you do have questions, throw them in. But yeah, there's a bunch of people who are talking about Rome in the red zone too. And I do think he's going to be an early red zone target, as Cole Kmet has been throughout his career so far. So I think the Bears are going to be in better position in the red zone than they have been in a long time because they have legitimate weapons down there now. I feel like they can run the ball in there. I feel like they can throw the ball in there. I feel like it's a good situation. So I like it. I think it'll work out just fine for them. Yeah. Do you have any last second thoughts on that, Tim, before we get into any questions here?
I saw a comment in here before we get into the questions. I saw a comment about they think Rome Odunze is going to be the number 1 wide receiver by the bye week. And I would pump the brakes. I would pump the brakes there. And honestly, I don't think
not impossible though.
I will tell you, and I told Jeff this earlier, I think he's the number 2 wide receiver possibly by then. I think Keenan is kind of the odd man out a little bit. I think he's definitely going to be the short area guy. He's going to be the security blanket for Caleb. But I think the big play stuff is going to be DJ and Rome. And I will say that as long as DJ is here, I think Rome's going to be the number 2. Because DJ, I'm telling you, this dude is going to have a breakout year. And he had a great breakout year last year. But I think it's going to go to another level because of what DJ can do after the catch. And now he's not going to be double covered. He's going to have a lot of single coverage because you got to cover 3 of these guys now, not just 1. I think he's
still going to get a lot of attention. And DJ, look, at the end of the day, he's still going to get a lot of attention. At the end of the day, DJ is, like I told you guys last week, I fully expect him to have a huge year too. He's still a very, very, very good player, regardless of who else is around him. He is an established, bona fide stud wide receiver in the NFL, and he is going to continue to be that way. He's in his prime, and you're paying him a lot of money. He's going to be part of this offense, a big time part of it, especially when you have a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. You got a guy who can fight for yak like that. Best believe he's going to be getting the ball a lot. So, and again, J-Rock says Keenan's going to get open a lot too. And I agree. He's going to be a lot like a safety blanket in those, got to have it now situations. So AC Adam thinks that Rome's going to have to earn wide receiver too. And he's going to have to earn everything. I agree with that. He is going to have to earn it, but I think he will. And I think it's only a matter of time until he does. It's just how long is that going to take is the question. So That being said, let's get to some of these questions we have because we don't have a ton of time left. So let's see what we got here. Aldo wants to know who we think is going to have more receiving yards between Keenan and Cole Kmet. That's a really good question.
I think it's Cole. I think it's Cole.
I think it's going to. I think they're going to be very, very close.
Receptions, I'm going to say it's Keenan, but yardage, I think it's going to be Cole.
I think it'll be close, and I totally agree with you on that because I think Keenan is going to see a lot more of the short yardage, catch the football, move the chains kind of thing. And Cole Kmet is like a downfield option. He does like to get down the field and catch the ball, especially in the middle of the field. So I think he will have more receiving yards, or at least be very close, I think. I mean, Keenan is still Keenan at this point in his career. So I would not be surprised to see him still be 1,000-yard receiver. I would not be surprised by that. However, like we said, there's a lot of mouths to feed here. So, and Cole Kmet is only an ascending player as well. So I think it's going to be close. I'm not sure who has. I would say that I would agree with Tim. I think it's more catches for Keenan and slightly more yardage for Cole, but it's going to be close, very, very close. There's a couple comments in here. J2K says we need to have patience with Rome. He's a good receiver. Let him be a rookie. He had some questions about his separation ability. And look, I agree with you that we got to let him be a rookie. He's going to be a good player, and we do have to have some patience with him. But we can afford to have patience because we have two other receivers around him that are very, very good. So we don't have to be on him right away about what's he doing. Although I'm sure there will be people who are wondering that. If that's the case, why aren't we getting Rome involved more? That will happen, I'm sure. But again, I agree with you, J2K. We got to have some patience on that front. Let him be a rookie. Now, I don't think he's going to have a huge issue with separation. Maybe not right away. He might not have a ton of success beating man coverage, but I think he will eventually be just fine there. He can, like I said, he wins on every route. He showed it on tape. John says rookie wide receivers have been lining up the NFL in recent years. It's a new league, new wide receiver league. And I do agree with you on that. However, that being said, look at some of these rookie receivers and the situations they walked into. Jamar Chase. He had T. Higgins there, but Jamar Chase was also teammates with Joe Burrow at LSU. They had rapport, and shit. Jamar Chase might be the best wide receiver prospect we've seen in a decade or more, outside of maybe Marvin Harrison. So that's in and of itself one thing. Justin Jefferson, who was around him in Minnesota? Adam Thielen, please. Of course he's going to be the guy. He's a great player. They're going to feed him. So in this particular case, I'm with you. If it was just Rome and he didn't have DJ and he didn't have Keenan Allen, yeah, he'd probably have 1,000 yards and he'd probably be force-fed the ball a little bit more. But I don't think you have to right now. You just don't have to. Jordan Addison was pretty good last year, John. I agree with you. But guess what? Justin Jefferson was hurt for a while. Again, they had to force the ball to Jordan Addison. They didn't have anything else. And Jordan Addison is a good player. So, look, I'm not disagreeing with
T.J. Hawkinson, who's been pretty reliable for them over there too.
A tight end, though.
That's why they went and got him.
Look, I'm not disagreeing with anything John is saying. My whole point to this is the Bears just have a different situation in their wide receiver room where he could potentially blow up, but I just don't see them I don't see that being the case necessarily just because of the guys that are around him, and they're going to get theirs too. So, look, could he? Yeah, of course he could, and I would love to see that, but I just, I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case right away. I do fully anticipate him by year 2, year 3 being a big time receiver in this league, though. Yes, absolutely, I do.
Hey, we have another question here, Jeff. I'm going to get to it before we run out of time here. But Cliff was asking about the punter. He was wanting to know about the punter from down under. Are we on his board yet?
Well, it's interesting you say that because I actually have a friend down under right now, a very special friend down under, and has been actually in the kind of general area that he's from. He is from Melbourne. It looks like Melbourne to us, but if you're in Australia, they will pronounce it Melbourne because that's just how they talk, obviously. So he is from Melbourne, and they obviously this guy, we talked about him a little bit last week, and I mentioned to you guys when you watch his film, Torrey Taylor, just the way he punts, the way he pins the ball, it's very impressive. He can watch his bounce, the way these balls bounce, the way he gets them to bounce forward, backwards, side to side, and he's constantly pinning teams inside their own 5-yard lines. It it's a thing of beauty watching it week after week. He was a legitimate weapon for Iowa. He was a huge part of the reason why they won as many games as they did, because their offense was absolutely freaking putrid. So, I mean, look at this. He's just dropping it right where he wants to. I mean, it's left and right all over the place. And there was an interesting, I want to get to it real quick before we get out of here. There was an interesting interview on CHGO that Adam Hogue did with Richard Hightower, special teams coordinator for the Bears. And he was talking about, how, sometimes these teams, it may have felt like a little bit of reach to people that they took a punter in the first round. And yeah, maybe that's historically high for a punter, but he is one of the higher graded punters they've ever seen. And Hightower mentions that there was no way he was getting to the 5th round, that he's had plenty of other coaches calling him saying, man, I can't believe you took our guy, in like a good way. I can't believe you took that guy in the 4th round. So, I mean, it's just, it might not look great from the surface knowing you only had 4 picks. But like I mentioned last week, going back into the 5th round and getting the edge rusher and Austin Booker, who has big upside, in my opinion, and having a guy like Taylor, who is a massive upgrade over what we had last couple years in Trent Gill, who is actually going to give us some better field position for our defense to work with. And Ryan Poles even mentioned on Waddle and Sylvie, that interview, I believe it was on that interview, how it's suffocating to an offense to start backed up like that. Think about being an offensive lineman and having a D lineman coming up at you right now, ready to back your quarterback up into his end zone and knock you guys back for a safety. It's got to be debilitating at times for guys, especially seeing the guys that are in front of them, So if Dexter can make a big jump, seeing Montez Sweat in front of you like that, that'd be tough. That's tough to deal with inside your 5-yard line. So it's going to be interesting to see, guys. I really, really like the pick, and I think Taylor's going to be a legitimate weapon for us. So Bruhaw says he's a Michigan fan, and he went out of his way to watch Iowa games just to see him punt. He's not sick, but he's not well. So, I mean, I understand being a Michigan fan, dealing with an Iowa guy coming to your team, but this guy is a legit weapon, man. And I cannot wait to see how he plays. And he's a fun interview too. He's actually been on a couple of them already. With Adam Rank was one. If you guys haven't had a chance to check that out, go ahead and do so. But yeah, all in all, some great things. And one more quick thing before we get out of here, I want to mention to you guys on that Albert Breer article that I said at the beginning of the show. Such a great article. Please, please, please go check it out. Here's a little tidbit from it that I want to mention to you guys that was really good, that I think you guys will have interest in, because we were talking about some of the speculation around Caleb before the draft. So here's the quote from the article. Some came, and this is talking about some of the things that were heard to polls from his people. Some came from national scout Francis St. Paul and West Coast area scout Reese Hicks, who kept telling polls that he needed to get back out to California and around the people at USC. He'd find out, they promised, that the narratives that circled Williams while the Trojan season circled the drain weren't real. Investigate it yourself, they said. Read our reports. Investigate it. So these scouts from the beginning were on polls telling him, do not listen to this shit. It's not real. And obviously, guys, we don't have access to this. So we're just telling you what we hear. But this is, obviously the Bears knew all along. They've been listening to all this stuff. They hear things too, just like we do. And their scouts did significant research. This is a really good spot for us to be in. We love where we're at right now. I think we're in a good spot with Caleb and the rest of our draft class. So, like I said, guys, we appreciate you being here as always. Let's see what won in this vote real quick. Let's see who won so we can give you my new Twitter handle. And it looks like _ Jeff Willis was the winner, and I kind of expected that to be the case. So we're going to go ahead and roll with that, make it easier for you guys to find me. So my new Twitter handle, guys, will be @ Jeff Willis. So you can follow me that way. You can follow Tim at TimWillis24. And as always, you can follow Barroom Network and Aldo at Barroom Network on Twitter. Please, guys, give our video a follow. Join us again next Friday, as always, so we can break down some more Bears information, news, and some of our own opinions on stuff. So thanks again, guys. We appreciate you being here. Bear down, baby. Claw.
The Willis Twin Towers podcast is a Barroom Network production. Jeff and Tim Willis are the co-hosts and co-producers. Aldo Gandia is executive producer. Music is licensed from Pond 5. Any copyrighted material used was done under the Fair Use Doctrine for commentary, criticism, and informative purposes. All of our programming is available in audio-only format by subscribing to the Barroom Network wherever you download podcasts. Videos are archived on YouTube.